Now, what vegetable seeds can we sow in July? And when we get to July, we're well into the growing season, and much of our focus is on maintaining the existing crops and harvesting. And sometimes in July, it's quite easy to take our eye off the ball and not realise that there are plenty of seeds that we can still be sowing in July to give us a longer and later harvest. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing some suggestions with you for seeds that you can sow in July to help you with that later harvest. Now, because of the time of year and the warmer temperatures, many of the suggestions I'm going to make in this video are going to allow us to sow our seeds directly into the ground. And in order to do that, clearly it's going to need to have the ground prepared properly, depending upon what seed you're sowing. Making sure you get rid of any large stones or lumps, and then possibly using compost before you put your seeds into the ground. And that'll give your seeds, particularly smaller seeds, the very best chance of germinating. So my first suggestion for sowing in July is turnips. This is a variety called Purple Top Milan, and I've grown this variety of turnips for many years, and I've always found it to be really reliable. Sow these thinly into the ground, because the seeds are quite small, into that pre-prepared bed that we've just spoken about, and cover it very, very lightly, and then water in. When the seedlings start to emerge, you'll need to thin them out to give them their own space, to around about 30 centimetres or 300 millimetres distance. And that applies in exactly the same way to my second suggestion, which is carrots. Carrots can be sown directly into the ground in July and sown in exactly the same way, thinly, and then separated out once they start to get a little bit larger. Or alternatively, with carrots, you can sow them and just let them grow into the ground. I'll always thin them out if they're in large clumps, but if there's twos or threes together, I might leave them together. You might get slightly smaller carrots by doing that, but you still get a good harvest by doing it that way around. This is a variety that many of you will be familiar with. It's called Autumn King 2, and they'll be sown directly into the ground in July. Now, if you are going to sow carrots in the warmer months, then you will need to protect them against carrot root fly, and that might be just putting a small barrier around them or growing them in a raised bed, and that will deter the carrot root fly from attacking your carrots. Now, if like me you like swede and you want to supply all through the winter, then July is a fantastic time to sow some swede. My favourite variety is a variety called Helena. I had fantastic success with these last year. Now, I already have an earlier sowing in the netting here, which should start to produce some swedes probably towards the end of August, but I am going to sow some over the next few weeks in July, and that will allow the swede to grow for the remainder of the summer and into autumn, and will also give me a supply of swedes right into winter. So swedes are a great crop to sow in July. Now, these can be sown directly into the ground in July, but I tend to still start these inside in plug trays and then transfer them out when they're large enough. But if you've got the right ground and the right conditions, you can sow these directly outside, and when they start to get large enough to thin them out. In their final position, swede needs to be about 18 inches apart, which is about 45 centimetres or 450 millimetres, because they do produce a large foliage and they will need their space. And if you've not tried this variety of swede before, Helena, then it's definitely worth a try. Now, myself and my family are really big fans of beetroot, and beetroot is a fantastic crop to sow directly outside in July. This year I'm growing two varieties, Pablo F1 and a variety called Minetta, which I'm growing for the first time. And as you can see, the beetroot that I sown a few months ago is growing fantastically well. Now, with beetroot, if you're going to plant it directly into the ground, then try and sow it quite thinly. The seeds are just large enough for you to be able to put them where you want them. They're like little clusters, so you can put them in position. Ideally, if you're going to do them in rows, they need to be about 30 centimetres, 300 millimetres or a foot apart, and the plants in the rows can have less of a spacing than that. Typically they'll be 4 inches, 10 centimetres or 100 millimetres. But if you want a good regular supply of beetroot, July is a fantastic time to sow them straight into the ground. And of course, there's no need to stop sowing your lettuce in July. If you look at previous videos on my channel, you'll know that I recommend to get a regular constant supply of lettuce to sow them every 3 weeks. Now, of course, you need to sow them in the amounts that you'll use them, because they do crop very quickly. So for example, there's no point in sowing a whole packet of seeds which could have 1,000 or 1,500 seeds in it and producing so many lettuce that you'll end up composting or throwing most of them away. So I try to sow in small amounts so that I can use the lettuce that I'm growing. I do end up giving quite a lot away because I personally find lettuce quite an easy crop to grow, and there are so many fantastic varieties of lettuce to grow. Varieties such as Lola Rossa, which is this purple coloured lettuce and fantastic flavour to it. Very popular is Little Gem. One of my favourites, if you've never tried it, is a variety called Lakeland, and that's very similar to an iceberg lettuce. Lakeland is definitely one worth a go. And at the end I've got a variety called All the Year Round, and I can continue sowing these into July and August and beyond. And because I have the facilities, I'll grow these all through the winter in my polyhouse. So lettuce is something that you can get a constant supply of, and July is a fantastic time to keep up the harvest. As with the other vegetables I've just recommended, if you are going to sow these directly outside, sow them thinly, and in a lot of cases you will need to protect them from slugs and birds, because the tender shoots of lettuce, particularly when they first germinate, are very popular with slugs, pigeons and other types of insects. Now, similar to lettuce, I like a regular supply of spring onions, and I've got spring onions all around the allotment, because just like lettuce, they're sown every 3 weeks. And there are quite a lot of really good varieties of spring onions available, so it really comes down to your own choice. White Lisbon is a really popular one, and I do grow that, but my two favoured varieties are the ones directly in front of me here. The first one, which is my absolute favourite, is a variety called Ramrod, and the reason I like Ramrod so much, it produces really good sized spring onions, and very quickly, and I've had very little trouble with that. So Ramrod is one worth a try if you've not grown that before. And the other one, which I'm really impressed with, which I'm growing for the first time this year, is a variety called Ishikura. And I've got some of those outside. They're slightly behind these ones here, but again, they're growing fabulously well. Now, like most of the other vegetables that I've already discussed, spring onions can be sown directly outside. But I tend to do a combination, so I will sow some outside and some of them into the raised beds. And I've even got some in plug trays, so they'll be grown in the plug trays and then transferred either here or outside when they're large enough. Now, the next two suggestions can actually be sown straight the way through to September. The first one is radish. This is a variety called French Breakfast 3, but again, there are lots of varieties of radish on the market. Scarlet Globe is a particularly good one. I've been trying French Breakfast and they've been very good this year. The good thing about radish is they grow very quickly. So as soon as you put these into the ground, typically within 6 to 7 weeks, you should be able to harvest your radish. So these will go in fairly regularly as I need them. And the next suggestion, which can also be sown through to September, is spinach. This is a variety called Samish F1, and I grew this last year and I had a really good harvest of this. And if you do like spinach, it's a great one to go for. And again, like much of the other veg featured in the video, this can be sown directly outside by preparing the ground and sowing to a depth of around about 2.5 centimetres, around about an inch, and covering it over and giving it plenty of water. And when the seedlings start to emerge, you'll need to thin them out to give them a distance of around about 10 centimetres or 100 millimetres. Now, from mid-July onwards, my thoughts also turn to winter greens. In the polyhouse I have here, I also think about, well, what's going to happen after the main growing season, when the weather starts to get a bit colder, it starts to get darker with less light. So I then start to utilise the space in here more readily. So in July, I'm going to make my first sowing of my winter greens. And there's some fantastic ones I'm about to suggest, which are very easy to grow. And these provided me with a crop of winter greens, literally all the way through the harshest winter. Now, this is an unheated polyhouse here, but these crops were fine in here, even in the harshest temperatures of the winter. Now, something I tried last year for the first time, was really pleasantly surprised about, was something called Mizuna, which is a mustard leaf. It grows very similar to lettuce or baby spinach, and it's one of these cut and come again crops. So I had so much of this, and you add that to a salad or a stir fry and it provides a really distinctive fresh flavour. This is a variety called Wado. Now, we've just looked at an outdoor variety of spinach which will be sown in July, Samish F1. But there are also baby spinach varieties that are available as winter greens, and this one in particular, Japanese Hohoi F1. Hopefully I said that correctly. And that will grow in a very similar way to Mizuna, where I'll grow it indoors and it's a cut and come again crop. The reason I like this so much is because it's a baby spinach, it fits really well into salads. I often find that the outdoor spinach in salads can sometimes be a little bit overpowering, but this particular variety doesn't have that problem. I'll also sow a small amount of Chinese cabbage in July. This is a variety called Kiseki F1, and also Pak Choi. Pak Choi is a fantastic vegetable to have over the winter period. Two varieties here, one called Blizzard F1 and one called Yushio F1, and they'll grow in this polyhouse quite happily over the winter period. Now, I am going to sow some of these in mid-July onwards in small amounts, but I will make later sowings in August and early September to give me that regular supply. So winter greens are really worth thinking about growing in July. All of these winter greens that I've just mentioned can be sown directly outside if you wish, apart from the Mizuna. But the reason I sow them all directly indoors is because I know that when the temperature starts to drop, they've got more protection in here. So in July, as you can see, there's absolutely no reason why you should stop sowing your seeds. Of course, the focus is going to be on harvesting and looking after the crops that you've got, but with a bit of careful planning, there's lots of those crops that you can sow now in July that allow you to have a much later harvest. And I really hope that I've given you one or two suggestions there. Now, they're my suggestions for vegetables that you can sow in July, but there will be plenty of others, and it'd be great to hear your suggestions by popping a comment below so that we can share it with other viewers of the channel. Now, it's also worth mentioning for the purposes of this video that I'm in zone 8 in the middle of the UK. So if you are going to sow these vegetables in your particular location around the world, it's worth checking your local climate and conditions, so that you might need to adjust the sowing times by a few weeks depending upon where you are in the world. But thank you very much for watching the video, which I hope you've enjoyed, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe to the channel for how to sow and grow fruit and veg and flowers and one or two recipe ideas, don't forget to press the subscribe button. And I'll see you all on the next video.